Jungkook could notice the air hanging with tension. He didn't feel good about this. He noticed her acting suspicious for a couple of days. At first, he waited for her to open up when she wants to, but he cannot handle it anymore. She is definitely hiding something from him, and it's serious. He could tell that much by looking in her eyes and facial expressions. He looked at her, anxiously running into the room with yet another letter. And whenever he asks about it, she lies to him, which is something she is so bad at that he quickly noticed it. He decided he was not going to ask her this time, as he knows she wasn't going to tell him. As of today, he came home early from a business trip and went to check the bathroom when he couldn't find her in the room. And he was shocked to hear her crying from inside as soon as he got close to the door. Jungkook immediately opened the door, her face red from crying, and a piece of paper crumbled in her hand. His heart shattered, seeing her in a condition like this. How long has it been that she is feeling like this alone? He didn't know. How much she suffered alone? He didn't know. He didn't know anything, which was something that dreaded him at the moment when he was looking at her. He slowly moved closer to her, her face turned to see him. He noticed the letter in her hand. There was something written on it with blood and a box placed on the sink with something inside it, which he couldn't see. But he didn't care much. He looked back at her, feeling the emotions with the same intensity as her, if not more. Their eyes locked for some seconds before wine ran towards him. She fell into his embrace, tightly holding her waist from her hands and hugging her chest. She started sobbing loudly, so loud that it made his heart bleed, his ears burn, and his eyes dark. Then her voice echoed in her ears. "Jungkook, please help me," she said, her voice trembling with fear and tears. He gently held her back, unable to look at her in this condition. He cannot wait to know what happened. Who made her cry like that? So that he can crumble them, crush them into the same amount of pieces as his heart was shattered into. After seeing them, he wanted to burn everyone around him at the moment, but at most, he wanted to comfort her first. "Jungkook, let's go outside first." He held her softly, side hugging her to take her to sit comfortably on the bed. Taking off his jacket and putting it around her, he hugged her again, but she immediately pulled back and looked into his eyes. "Wine. Jungkook, please save my mom. I beg you," she said, and then looked at the piece of paper which was in her hand. He looked at it too. "Someone has her, and this is her blood." She closed her eyes tightly, and sobs left her mouth. Jungkook's eyes flickered, his brows raising in question, his eyes gaining darkness, and his fingers clenched into his fists. Jungkook's expressions turned cold as he took a look at the letter, his mind racing with anger and determination. "Who is it?" he demanded. Just the two words were enough to show how much he was raging from inside at the moment. His voice low and menacing. "Tell me and I'll take care of it." Fine looked above at him, his eyes burning with the fire that could be seen by anyone at the moment. Vine hesitated, fear in her eyes. I don't know. They just sent this and Vine and told me to kill you in your sleep if I want my mom alive. I ignored it at first, but then they sent this. Jungkook pulled her in his embrace once again, patting her back, trying to calm her down. Because all she said was enough information. The remaining work is his, and he's so good at this. Jungkook patted her back, his voice softening. Don't worry, I will find out, and when I do, they'll regret ever crossing us. He pushed her away and looked into her eyes, brushing her hair from her face and cupping her cheeks in his hand. He said, now stop crying so that I can go and look for it. You trust me, right? You know I won't disappoint you. Vine looked at him with her teary eyes and nodded silently. Jungkook felt a sense of relief seeing her nodding and staying composed even after what happened. He pulled her closer and laid a soft, lingering kiss on her forehead. And looking at her for one last time with a smile, he got up. Jungkook went into the bathroom once again, remembering the box which was placed on the sink. He took a look at it and found a bottle of poison with a big knife placed beside it. Basically, weapons to kill Jungkook. He scoffed, looking at it. Jungkook, you really take us as a joke, right? He said to himself, and his expressions turned serious once again when he saw a small finger on the sink. His heart stopped for a second. The finger which had a ring on, her mother used to wear. He knows about it because she always wears it as it's something her mother in law gave her. Jungkook took the finger in his hand and closed his eyes, thinking how she must have felt after looking at it. His fists clenched. You dare to make my wife cry? I'll show you what it means to cross me. He immediately went outside, looking at her, who slept while crying. He sighed and went outside. The blackmailer was so going to regret what he did. After a couple of hours of him finding clues about him, tracking his location, and actually finding him, which took him non-stop work and headache, Jungkook found him. After a few hours, Jungkook returned home with her mother by his side, and some blood on his shirt, his eyes and body finally coming to a rest from the storm that was raging inside him for the whole night. It was already morning, and when he reached home, he found Vine walking back and forth in the living room, her face completely worn out. Looking at them, Vine instantly ran towards her mother and hugged her real tight, followed by her mother doing the same. They both started crying in each other's necks, and finally their hearts felt at peace, especially Jungkook, whose day-long tension and anger completely vanished into dust when he saw Vine finally hugging her mom. Jungkook kept looking at them, adoring the moment, and finally they broke the hug. Vine looked at her mother's hand, and her finger and her ring finger was actually cut off. She hoped really bad that it didn't happen, but it did. Looking at it, her heart shattered. She froze at her place for some seconds while looking at her hand. Vine's mother. I'm completely fine. It doesn't even hurt anymore. she said while smiling as she put a hand on Vine's cheek. Vine smiled, taking her mother's hand and kissing it. Vine, I'm so sorry. I'm really sorry. Her mother hugged Vine once again and shook her head. It's not your fault. Besides, I'm really fine. Jungkook looked down, remembering the moment when he saw her mother's hand there, her finger missing. But he made sure the blackmailer lost all his fingers, step by step, as he took one of his fingers, cut the top of it, and then cut the middle part, and then the whole finger. He applied it to all of his fingers until he was begging for his death from Jungkook. Vine was shaken but grateful when Jungkook came here with her mother, hand in hand. Thank you, she said, her voice trembling. I was so scared. Jungkook patted her hair, his hands moving gently through her hair. You're safe now. I will always protect you and the people you love. He smiled. Vine's mother looked at him and patted his shoulder with teary eyes. I can never be more grateful for a son-in-law like you. But she was smart as well. She knew they needed time as well after all this. She looked at Vine and said to her, Now I'm really tired. I'll sleep in the guest room. You guys should sleep too. Fine. But wait, I will sleep with you today. She was going to stop her walking mother when Jungkook came to her and held her wrist. Jungkook. She herself is trying to insist us to spend time together. She will be happy by seeing us together. Vine looked at Jungkook and then at her mother, who was gesturing her to just go and close the door from inside. Vine smiled and looked back at Jungkook, her eyes and heart swelling with gratitude and love for Jungkook. And in that moment, Vine knew that she had found her true partner, her rock, her love. She went closer to him and hugged him just like she did earlier in the bathroom, hugging her arms around her waist and putting her head on his chest. As she listened to his heartbeat, she closed her eyes, not knowing how to thank him, how to pay him back. She just stayed there quietly, and Jungkook patted her back. Jungkook, you're so strong, Vine. I'm so proud of you. I can go around and tell everyone, proudly, that you, Jeon Vine, are my wife. Jungkook, I love you so much. And with that, he pulled her away and kissed her lips in a deep and passionate way, her heart and emotions becoming one with him. She wanted to throw herself upon him at the moment. This was the kind of person she can even sacrifice her life for and still feel happy for it. She had found her love. She kissed back with the same intensity as he did. The long-lasting kiss was a testament to their love, and that they can face anything if they're together. They pulled back, gasping for air, and looked at each other. She cupped his cheeks in her tiny hands as she said, I love you too, Jungkook, more than you could ever know.